Out of all our branches of government, our judicial system is probably the best in the world. If you say so. What does that mean? Do you have any clue on the inspiration behind our judicial system and that it is in fact in the Bible? Exodus chapter 18, verse 17 through 23. Now, this is just after Jethro witnesses Moses' son-in-law doing all kinds of stuff for the people, and Jethro's wisdom sees that will ultimately end up happening. You are not acting wisely, his father-in-law replied. You will surely wear yourself out, and not only yourself, but these people with you. The task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now listen to me, and I will give you some advice, that God may be with you. Act as the people's representative before God, bringing to him whatever they say. Enlighten them in regard to the decisions and regulations, showing them how to act and what they are to do. But you should also look among you the people for God-fearing men, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and set them officers over groups of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and tens. Let these men render decisions for the people in all ordinary cases. More important cases should refer to you, but all the lesser cases they can settle themselves. Thus your burden will be lightened, and all the since they will bear it with you. If you do this, when God gives you orders, you will be able to withstand the strain, and all these people will go home satisfied. Well, wait, I am not finished. Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 15. One witness alone shall not take the stand against a man in regard to any crime or any offense of which he may be guilty. The judicial fact shall be established only on the testimony between two or three witnesses. Have you watched trials? That's what exactly happens. Really? You believe that? Sure, don't you? Nope. Look, your room is kind of a pigsty. Why don't I help you clean up dust? And I will share some scary statistics about our judicial system. Well, I do agree with you on that front. Not about our justice system, but my room being a mess. If you want to help, great. All you have to do is look at the Constitution. It gives all citizens certain rights, even to those that engage in criminal conduct or are accused of any crime. They have a right to the defense, they have a right to legal representation, they have a right for presumption of innocence, a speedy and fair trial, a fair and impartial jury. It's all there in black and white. You know, just because something's in black and white doesn't mean it works. Take a look at Moses, who divided the people in the various groups. We do have the Constitution, but we also have various levels of courts that interpret that Constitution. And they are set and bound by certain rules, especially for criminal cases, for civil cases, and rules of evidence. And when they have a trial, then if they can go up to the appellate court to appeal that decision to see if the rules and everything was followed the way that it's laid out in the Constitution. If that doesn't work, then they can go up to the state Supreme Court. If that doesn't work, of course, the last stop's the U.S. Supreme Court. But since 1989, 2,400 inmates have been exonerated for crimes they did not commit. Where did you get that info? From a 2021 article written by Andriana that is on the High Court with updated statistics for the Innocence Projects. And that's just exonerated. How many people are still doing time for crimes they did not commit, or probation, or it's still on their record, and they're still trying to get their life back over a wrongful conviction? It's really not that bad if you think about it, because since 2021 to 1989, 2,400 inmates, that's about what, 75 per year? And we didn't have all the DNA evidence that we do now back then. We didn't have all the technology. That is a good point. But here's another point. Out of those 2,400 people, only 375 have been exonerated due to DNA evidence. 21 of those have served time on death row. And since 1973, 195 people have been exonerated on death row. Let's look at the case of George Stanley Jr. He was convicted in 1944 for raping and murdering 2 girls, 11 and 7. And he was exonerated back in 2014, 70 years after this happened. Unfortunately, he was put to death at the age of 14 in 1944. So I guess the Bill of Rights didn't really work out for him. Now let's see, the ratification of the Bill of Rights was what, in 1791, I believe? And correct me if I'm wrong, but 1791 is well before 1944 and 1989. Those other 2,000, I'm sure that can be justified somehow. Absolutely not. Have you ever watched those, like, aviation disaster, that Maydays, the Wonder YouTube channel? Nope. Can't say that I have. Well, maybe you should. Because of the fact that it's just so interesting to me how thorough that they are with their investigation. They dot every I, they cross every T, and they get to a root cause of the disaster. Now, most of the causes in this article that has listed are among a victim misidentifying a suspect, a false confession, false forensic evidence that is misleading or misapplicable, perjury or false accusations, governmental or official misconduct, and an inadequate defense. Out of all the people that are wrongfully convicted, 31% are for murder. 29% are due to a false confession.
Isn't that what Miranda rights and the Fifth Amendment's for?
Yep. Now, as I understand it, watching a lot of lawyers, watching a lot of shows, watching some interrogations, there's a couple things that need to be addressed for the cops to be required to tell a defendant or a suspect their rights. 1, they have to be in custody. 2, they have to have interrogation going on. And what do they need in order to put someone in custody? Probable cause that a crime is taking place or has taken place. So let's look at a hypothetical. Teenager has an argument with his parents. He's going to storm off and go, girl, boy, doesn't matter, go off and hang with his friends. Birthday, whatever. Now, a couple hours later, someone's going to find some severe burns on the parent. And they're going to rush him to the hospital. The doctor's going to see the burns, going to say, hey, we have an assault, call the police. Police is going to get there, and they're going to point, well, there's only 2 people that lived in the house. So obviously it's that person. Relatives, well, it's that person because they're the only ones there. They're going to go to the father, who is going to say that, well, we have arguments, but he's not going to denote any domestic violence attitude. They're going to go to the house, they're going to see the chemicals. So what do they have? They have a chemical. They have the fact that there's only 2 people that lived at the house, him and either the son or daughter, and the father has burns. Now, to me, and with everybody saying that the suspect that they're interested in pointing the finger at, did it, I would say that that's probable cause to go over and pick her up and arrest her. But if they do that, they have to invoke Miranda before any questioning. So what do? We need to just talk to you. Do you know why we're here? Then they get the story. And then they kind of backtrack till add a little thing. It wasn't an addition of the story. To the cops, it's a new story. It's 3 or 4 different versions of the story. And all that is admissible in court because it was voluntarily. It wasn't under arrest, wasn't interrogation, it was just them talking. And then, of course, when they consider that 3 or 4 different stories, then they kind of look at you and say that, hey, if you're not honest with us, we can't help you. Biggest lie in the book. Two-faced, donut-eating pigs. Well, can you imagine the turmoil that would go on without cops? Yeah, sometimes that their techniques and sometimes they just try and shop for what they're looking for because they know what they're looking for. They know what they're going to find and they're just looking for that. They're not searching, they're shopping for it. But, cops have to deal with people like sovereign citizens, think they're above the law. They have to deal with robbers. They have to deal with dangerous events on a daily basis. So thank God that we have them. It's just sometimes the cops tend to kind of go out of bounds because they know the law. They know how to get around the law and they know how they can kind of trap a suspect and invade on their rights because it's perfectly legal in their book. Okay, you made your point. 14 years is the average lifetime of someone that has been wrongfully convicted spends in jail or spent serving a sentence. Prosecutors are human. They make mistakes. All government officials make mistakes. I'm sorry. Mistake? How is wrongfully convicting someone a mistake? You know what a mistake is? A misguided action. So what you're saying is those 2,400 people that were exonerated are 2,400 mistakes made by prosecutors? There's a saying that it's all right to make a mistake, but as long as you learn from them. So according to what you're saying is that prosecutors and the government haven't learned from their mistakes. Prosecutors are typically representing a state. They're representing a whole slew of people. And so you would think that a prosecutor would take care when investigating or figuring out what happened as far as a charge. So, you know what a failure to take care of something that could cause bodily or physical or emotional harm to another party? That is negligence. Lawyers love to use that all the time, especially prosecutors. Negligence. The defendant acted with negligence. Well, I think the prosecutors oftentimes offer and work in negligence. Why is this such an issue with me? Because I have dealt with a lot of challenges, a lot of trials, and a lot of mental health issues. I've had a lot of things that have caused some mental problems and emotional problems in my life. And I can't think of one greater thing that I have gone through more than if someone was wrongfully convicted for a crime they did not commit. I'm sure that you have some suggestions on how this country could reduce wrongful convictions. Oh, hell yeah. There's one tool that really could fix this problem. And that is that all people, all lawyers, all judges be required to take a minor degree in philosophy. One thing prosecutors love to do is take advantage of a critical but essential jury instruction that all juries are given. One, that they are not supposed to do any outside research, get on social media, because it would create a mistrial. But they also take advantage of a critical thing that is given to all jurors, and that is that they are to base their verdict on the evidence that is presented and testimony that is presented, and they take advantage of that big time. Let's look at two car crashes. One concerning a juvenile, one concerning 25, 26, 27-year-old. Now, for the juvenile, they possibly had medical history. They reviewed their medical history, and there's some questionable things about possible stuff that could make them pass out. The 25-year-old, they have no medical history, but they were impaired. They had a blood alcohol level of 0.255. They were on marijuana. They had crack in the car. They had cocaine. What do you think that a prosecutor that wants the maximum conviction of someone is going to do? They're going to try to exclude the medical information because they don't think it's relevant to their case. Not the case, but to their case. Exactly. Because a judicial fact must be established only on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. And how can we have all that if the prosecution, if the state investigators are going to decide for themselves that I don't think that's relevant? It's not just wrongful convictions to me that irks me. It's the fact that prosecutors, especially when you're dealing with juveniles, they will manipulate the facts to get a charge that they want to charge and not have the facts fit the appropriate charge. I will leave a link to wrongful convictions, the article that I cited, down in the description below. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification for notifications on. And we have an 8th Amendment right. All defendants have an 8th Amendment right to not have an excessive bail, not to be able to have a overly severe penalty, and not to be in double jeopardy. How is, as far as I'm concerned, if a prosecutor is going to manipulate the facts, decide what is relevant, decide what to give to discovery and what not to put in discovery, that to me is a violation of that defendant's rights as far as the 8th Amendment is concerned, because you are trying to get an overly severe penalty, overly severe charge for that defendant, for that juvenile, or for that suspect. I hope you like the video. I will see you next time.
It's tough now, but trust me, yeah, trust me.